All right, it is 10 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started with this, everybody. Welcome back to the 10th and final episode of the Expedition series. For those of you who've been along the journey, it's great to see you again. And for those of you just joining for the first time, we're stoked to have you here. And if you're interested in seeing the rest of the series, head to our website, YouTube channel, whatever, or reach out to your sales guys and we'll get you pointed in the right direction to catch those. Whether you're live and in color or catching this on demand, we really appreciate y'all taking the time out of your busy schedules to hang out. We know it's not easy, so we really, really do appreciate it. Stoked that you're here to maybe refine your skills, swap out some of your gear, reference to Mark's presentation, or if you're just getting started in the K space, outfitting your pack for the first time. My name is Justin MacNeil, and I'll be your guide today, here to walk you through how to close 401k plans without sounding like a grimy, sleazy salesperson. But before we set off, as any proper guide would do, we got to go over some important guidelines in the form of what we like to call headlines. Housekeeping. I'm in retireholics mode there. First and foremost, we got to give a very happy birthday shout out to our little buddy, Malcolm Palmini. He is the son of the NorCal version of me, Mr. Mark Palmini. And funnily enough, the last time I did one of these things, it was his daughter's birthday. So I got to wish her one too. So this is a little serendipitous. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, a real quick recap of what all this is. The 401k Expedition series is a 10-part series broken down into two 5-session seasons. Say that 10 times fast. It's hosted by the PDC sales team, which is JD, Chad, Mark, Devin, and myself. No one actually knows the last time JD sold a plan, but let me tell y'all, back in his prime, he was a killer. The series is designed to help advisors of all levels reach their proverbial 401k mountaintop. Each session runs roughly 20 to 30 minutes, give or take a few. And with this being the last day of school, we might let you out of here a little bit early today. So we break down the sales process piece by piece, from prospecting to useful techniques to identifying the right partners to align with, and much, much more. We're at the end of our second season, but don't worry, everything is on demand. So again, head to your YouTube channel, head to our website to catch any or all of the previous episodes that you may have missed. If you have the time, if you don't have the time to get through all 9, don't worry. Pick a few topics that pique your interest and do as our boy Chad likes to do. Crank that playback speed up to 1.5 and get through it rather quickly. And as always, don't forget to tune into the Retireholics every first and third Thursday of the month at 4:30 Pacific, where we host a slightly or much more inebriated version of what we're doing here today, educating advisors, educating plan sponsors on industry relevant information. And it is a bit more entertaining because you get to hear from all of us instead of just me for the next 20 minutes. So be sure to dial in for that. We dubbed this season 2 the Base Camp series, and we intentionally shifted our focus from the experienced advisor to those of you who are brand new to 401k. Maybe you've never sold a plan, maybe you're brand new to sales, or those of you who have dabbled a little bit but looking to level up their game. With that said, even though the series is geared towards the newer advisor, those of you experienced folks can still pull some nuggets out of these presentations, so feel free to come along for the journey. I'm going to apologize ahead of time, though, as today's presentation might feel a little out of order, and that's because, frankly, it is. The first time I was actually slated to go second in the process of the series here, had some tech difficulties, so you may see some references pertaining to that or tying something to Mark's presentation before mine. And yes, I know I could have gone back and updated it over the past couple months, but damn it, these things are, they take time to put together. And to be honest, I can just be lazy as I'll get out at times. But also in a few weeks from now, the team will be packaging this all together in chronological order, taking the advisor through A to Z of the entire sales process. So look forward to that. So without further ado, if you haven't had a chance to catch part 1, that was hosted by really a couple months ago at this point, by guide extraordinaire Mark Palmini. Make sure you go back, give it a watch, because he did an excellent job at setting the stage for the entire season here. At Basecamp, Mark taught us what goes into properly preparing ourselves for the sales meeting, gave us a lot of quality nuggets, or as I like to call them, Mark morsels, for approaching both startup and takeover opportunities. And now that we're packed for the journey, it's time to head up to Camp 1 atop PDC Ridge. And just as Mark said in his presentation, God, I love AI. Just a few keystrokes, and it created this awesome image, showing that PDC has its own state park, which is awesome. Not really, but you get the point. When I started thinking about this topic, I had a recurring thought that just came to my mind, and it kept coming back to the one theme that's pretty much universally understood across all businesses, with the exception of probably car dealerships and actually furniture. If you ever shopped back there in the day or still do, this day and age, nobody wants to be sold to anymore. They want to be consulted. But surprisingly, we still see it happen out there. Not too bad, but most often from the newer advisors who are still cutting their teeth, and that's understandable. They often mask their experience with kind of salesy techniques and, come off as inauthentic, which can result in lower closing percentages while they're kind of honing their craft. And, it's to be expected, but we want to get them through it, or get you through it really as quick as possible. And one of the easiest things to remember while learning to sell plans, whatever you do, don't be this guy. Nothing makes me cringe more than seeing a guy in a suit with slick back hair, bragging about his country club membership, pretending to be your best friend while using every sales trick in the book. If you can take one thing from today, make it this, which I hope you take more, obviously. But whatever you do, be sure to do the exact opposite of this guy. Instead, be this guy. That's right. Anytime you feel those sleazy sales techniques start to bubble up to the surface, summon your inner Leonidas and kick the ever-loving you-know-what out of those techniques and right off that cliff. It's not rocket science. I think we inherently know when we're beginning to sound at least a little bit cheesy, but sometimes we just can't help ourselves, right? It's that comfort blanket in the absence of being properly prepared. The best way to sell without feeling salesy or sounding salesy is to shift your mindset from a pitch to problem solving. Instead of pushing a product, become a trusted advisor who helps people get from where they are to where they want to be. And in our world, that is obviously helping them design a plan for the first time that is going to fit their needs, rather than put them in a box with only a few select choices. Or maybe it's a takeover and you're providing them a solution that improves their retirement benefit, rather than retooling or I should say, retooling their plan to increase the overall outcomes of the plan, or bandaging pain points that they're currently experiencing. Either way, this is what you want to get good at, right? So kind of some pre-meeting thoughts to put yourself in a good position. And this is kind of piggybacking off of what Mark had presented in his. It's hard to not sound salesy if you're not properly prepared. I can't stress that enough. Winging it, and God knows we've all been there. I still like doing it myself. It's a little bit of a rush at times, but winging it can only get you so far, which is something we see more often, again, with newer advisors. You're not fully prepared. You're still learning the industry and, what makes people tick and how this, the complex space of 401k actually does operate. But you not only need to prep for the plan you're trying to sell, keep that in mind, but you also need to do your homework on the client. All too often, and I'm, again, still guilty of this at times as well, because, time may be short, maybe get asked into a meeting with minimal time, or, kind of last minute, but we zero our focus in on the plan and completely forget how much benefit it is to learn about the client. Go to their website, check out their socials, chat them up before jumping into the actual meat of the meeting to see, what you can learn. What do they do? What kind of products or services do they sell? What are their flagship products or services? Can you relate to them in any way? Maybe they sell snow gear and you're an avid skier or snowboarder. What a great way to make a connection and immediately start to build at least a little bit of rapport, right? Something personal. People like to buy from people they can relate to. And let's be real, you're not always going to find that common interest though, but you got to remember to look for it. Learn ahead of time what maybe where their offices are located. Are they in a state that already has or is in the midst of establishing state mandates for plans? And have they already begun that process? If so, get familiar with that state's plan, the deadlines, the penalties, everything else that goes along with it, the investment lineups. This will allow you to immediately start providing a ton of value. If it's a takeover plan, hold a 5,500, run a benchmark before the meeting, see where you can spot any red flags, do maybe the characteristic codes or the audit or the contribution sources indicate what they may like or dislike about their plan already. Get you ahead of the game. Learning these details is going to get you, learning the details ahead of time is going to let you craft the best version of your story much better than firing from the hip can ever do. And the other pre-meeting kind of topic I like to throw out there is authenticity. Be unapologetically you. I threw this picture of Mr. Ted Lasso in here because he's the best at it. Authenticity is everything, and not many people can do it better than him. He doesn't change who he is or sacrifice his morals to mirror those of another. He stays firmly rooted in his character at all times, which is, which is his strength. Sure, he might come off as a little strange, but it's the fact that he remains true to himself is what actually sets him apart from the competition. And that's all we're trying to do here, right? Stand out amongst our competitors. As technology continues to advance with payroll integrations and AI, and convergence continues to rise, and the smaller record keepers and TPAs get gobbled up by the big dogs, originality in ideas, tools, products, the whole 9 yards, all those offerings are becoming less and less common. And, if all of that is going to start sounding the same, how are you going to make yourself sound different and set yourself apart? Side note, if you haven't watched Ted Lasso, get yourself a subscription to Apple. There's plenty of free ones out there. You won't regret it. Amazing show. They're 30-minute episodes. You can finish the season in like 3 hours. And it's got a ton of life lessons for business and just how to be a good human being as well. So, all right. So let's dive into the actual conversation with the plan sponsor. There we go. All right. It is no secret, right? People like doing business with people they can relate to and that they like, and who can provide them a solution to their problem. All too often, professionals tend to be all business from the start. Maybe we need to be mindful of a short time frame for the meeting or whatever, but we don't want to overlook a great opportunity to build that rapport. Chat up the prospect a little. Try not to go too long if you don't have a lot of time, right? But at least take 30 to 60 seconds. Learn a nugget about who they are on the outside of the office. This is going to show that you genuinely care more than just the sale, right? And it may even lead to you discovering a common passion that you have in life, which is only going to make them like you more. That's what we're trying to do here. Next, don't let go of the reins. You want to make sure you maintain control here, all right? And you want to be the one leading the conversation. So be sure you are the one who effortlessly transitions the conversation to business. It can be something as simple as connecting a comment they made to a recent happening in the industry, or maybe their plan specifically. But this is going to allow you to take the conversation where you want it to go, and when you want it to go there. All right. And before diving into the meat of the conversation again, make a statement that establishes you as the expert in the room. All right. This is only going to help you continue to keep hold of the reins. So, the world, this world inside out, in and out. You work with the right partners and have a lot of, value to offer them. Remember, it's always better to give more than you receive here. And before you can ask for the business, you got to give your prospects a reason to trust you. So share free tips, share how you've helped solve pain points for other clients, or just offer helpful advice, that comes for free to them. When you're freely providing value, people are going to naturally view you as the go-to expert. So, and want to continue the conversation and working with you. Next, this is something that we are all, I don't say we all struggle with, but it is a common theme for us as salespeople. And we're not good at it. Less talking, more learning. You want to ask, and then ask some more, right? We love to talk more than we don't, and that can completely kill the rapport you're working to build here. Stop talking and start asking. You want to become the expert at crafting open-ended questions that fit your presentation flow. Like an iceberg, right? So much of what we don't know lies under the water. Closed-ended questions are going to tell you what, kind of affirm what we already know. It's that iceberg above the water that we can see that small part of it. Open-ended questions are going to uncover what the prospect's real challenges are that lie beneath the waterline and what they actually need. This is, so get them talking. And as much as we like to be, ones ourselves, we love it even more when the client is the chatty Cathy in the room. Keeps the conversation going, provides you with incredibly valuable information so you can steer, away from problem instead of sinking like the Titanic. And it's going to uncover potential buying signals as well. When you focus on discovery rather than dictation, meaning, telling the client what they need or what they should want, the customer essentially is going to sell themselves on the solution. Again, when you're focusing on discovery rather than dictation. So when done right, these questions will lead to them sharing their pain points, which is what we want. Don't just acknowledge and move on. You got to remember, clients want to know they have been heard. When they feel heard by you, they feel connected to you. And as I said earlier, people buy from people they feel connected to. Listen to their frustration. Let them know you understand their situation. If there's room to empathize with it, definitely do it. It's going to only help you there, right? But When you show that you genuinely do care about their success, the conversation is going to move from a sales pitch to a collaborative discussion. And that's where that's where ideas and thoughts are going to be shared. And that's what we want. Okay. Once they have answered all your question, it's going to be paramount to summarize what they have shared. This shows you've been engaged the whole time. You understand the situation that they're in, and it's going to build the trust they need to know they'll be in great hands working with you down the line. And now, once you've done this, you're ready to move on to providing them with an actual solution. Come on. Sorry. There we go. All right. So this is the most important part of the selling process, obviously. I think we all know that. It's the heart of everything you're there to do. It's where you tell your story and present the solution that you believe is going to be the best fit for your prospect. When you're telling your story, don't make it too long, but don't make it too short either. Share your history, share your values, and the approaches you believe are important foundations to serving your clients. This includes how you keep your fingers on the pulse of the plan and the industry year over year as the retirement landscape changes. What tech stacks do you use? How are you leveraging AI to reduce your clients' administrative burdens? Everything that's going to set you apart from the competition. And now it comes to my favorite part. Because you've properly prepared for the meeting and asked the right open-ended questions in the learning stage, you already know the path you want to guide your future client down. And this is where you're going to showcase your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, and your passion for what you do. Guys, I can't stress the passion enough. The client will respond very well if they know you live, breathe, and sleep this stuff, and because they're going to know, hey, this guy or gal really does know what they're talking about. They want to be here. They want to serve me, and they're going to take care of me. The most effective consultants, they do this by painting a word picture in this part of the process. And I don't know why, but I've always loved this saying. Heard it years ago. I can't remember where it was. Maybe it was in the movie, knowing me, but regardless, it's stuck with me ever since. And it's an area I am always trying to refine. There's not much more powerful in the sales process than knowing how to paint a quality word picture for your prospects. Humans are visual creatures, by nature. And if we can master how to communicate visually, more connections are going to be made, and selling will become a heck of a lot easier for you. I assure you of that. And when presenting the solution, you want to do so in the manner where you're actually selling the outcome rather than just the feature. Okay. Now the features, they are important. Don't get me wrong. But if the prospect can't visualize how the outcome is going to benefit their situation, the feature won't have the impact that I'm sure you were looking for. It may still work, but you can be far more impactful if you're elaborating on what it's actually going to do for them. And so let's think about it, right? Business owners don't wake up thinking, man, I wish I had payroll integration, or I wish I had automatic enrollment. They wake up thinking, shit, my HR staff is extremely overwhelmed. Whether that's just with the participants or employees in general, or it's managing the plan, that's on their mind. Maybe they're thinking, hey, my plan fees are too high, or my employees aren't participating in the plan. You want to learn to translate these features that can solve the concerns the business owners have into a positive business outcome for them. If they don't know they need payroll integration, but they've heard about it, maybe come out to them saying, utilizing a payroll integration solution will create a bridge between your payroll company and your record keeping vendors that will automate that per pay period upload process your HR team is managing. This is going to free up, on average, we find, 2 days worth of their time over the course of a year, every year that they're operating this plan and now they can devote that time to other things that they need to do for the company. Or if automatic enrollment is something, or I should say low participation in the plan is a big thing for them, and they don't know about automatic enrollment. Talk about how automatic enrollment has been a great contributor in driving participation rates because it requires employees to opt out of participation rather than opt into participation. Most people know, realistically, that they should be saving for their retirement, but they don't, either out of fear or, fear of the unknown. They don't really understand our industry, or just pure laziness. And they just need that nudge, and let the prospect know, hey, statistics show participation rates increase to 60 to 75% on average when we adopt an automatic enrollment feature. And that's going to help, get your employees back on the right track for retirement. And if you can tie these outcomes to something personal, like a personal story, even better. And one thing I actually use when we talk about automatic enrollment, because obviously it is mandated for all new plans going forward for companies with 10 or more employees. I was one of those lazy, early 20-year-olds that in my prior life, my company automatically enrolled me in the plan. I knew I needed to save. I just never took the initiative to do it, but they did it for me. And after a year and a half or so, I looked at my account and I had a couple $1,000s in there. I did nothing for, and that got my wheels spinning, right? And it made sense to me. It's like, oh, geez, this is going to help me save, and it's going to put me in a position down the road where I can actually retire and enjoy my life. And I think it was after 3 years or so, there was a couple like $10,000-$15,000 in there that I had nothing for. And being able to share that personal story of an impact a recommendation you're stating has made on you is going to resonate quite well with them. So, at this point, in an ideal world, we've addressed all the client's needs perfectly and they're ready to move forward, right? But we're not naive. Not every call is going to be a one call close. There's going to be objections in some form or another. Some clients need time to process what's been presented to them. You may be the first in line of 3 presenters, and that's fine. Or they may not have, or I should say, you may not have fully addressed their concerns. And whatever the case is, you don't want to get defensive here. So if they just need time to make their decision, respect that, but make sure there's nothing else they need clarification on before ending, the meeting and scheduling the next follow-up meeting to reconnect and make that final decision. If there are concerns with your solution or something that you just had yet to be or address, then we need to go back to a modified version of that learning stage to address everything and ease their concerns or those objections. And you can typically do this in kind of a 4-stage process. First, you got to cushion it. Typically an objection is going to have some emotion to it. You want to take that out of it. Identify what it actually is and start to clarify, I should say, what what the disconnect is between what they said and what they meant. Maybe there's a disconnect between what you said and what they interpreted. Either way, this is where you need to get a better understanding of what that objection is all about. Then, if it's just a misunderstanding in how they interpreted what you're saying, you can, convince, reaffirm, the reason for your recommendation and why it is a benefit to them, confirm that they're satisfied and move on. Or if there was a complete misunderstanding either by you or the prospect, go back through the process of learning, get an understanding of what they need. And if you need to update what your solution is, do so at the time, and then move on to the next stage, which is everyone's favorite part, the close. There we go. All right. So it is decision time at this point, right? No matter what the outcome, we've followed the process. We've learned, we've built rapport, we've provided optimal solutions, and hopefully we have no remaining barriers to overcome. Again, in an ideal situation, moving forward should feel like a no-brainer to the prospect at this point. However, we don't always know how, another person makes their decisions. So in this case, we want to control what we control here. First and foremost, and this kind of does feel a little cheesy, but mindset is number one. Positive vibes only here. And I hope you appreciate that one, Mark. But positive mindset is going to communicate confidence. Confidence in who you are and who your recommendations are, and this will resonate with the prospect. Be sure to recap the meeting. This is going to affirm that you were engaged, you understood their needs, and are confident the solutions you presented will have a beneficial outcome for their employees and their business. Be sure not to recap the features, though. This can get you in a little bit of hot water. Reason being, it could lead the prospect to start asking more clarifying questions on the feature themselves, maybe cause them to find additional objections or pushbacks, which, if there are there, you want to make sure to address. You don't want to be sleazy and just push them to the side. But it just could prolong the whole sales process there for you. So again, focus on the outcome, not the feature itself. And finally, ask for the business. There's a handful of ways that you can approach this. Everyone has their own unique way of doing this, but my preferred is just the assumptive close. Let them know what the next steps are in moving forward and how they want to do that, what you're going to need from them, and communicate the expected timelines that they should be aware of. It's always ideal to collect what you need from them at this moment if there is time for it. But if time is short, maybe you're running up against a hard deadline there, schedule a brief follow-up call just to collect those items they're going to need. Maybe it can be collected over email. Whatever it is, do it at their next soonest availability, right? And that's going to put you right where you want to be in closing the plan. Now, in closing, though, not every plan is going to be a win. This is actually, it was profound when I first heard about it, but There's going to be plenty of times where, you are in fact not the right solution for the client, and they may not be the right solution for you. And so it's never a good idea to force a square peg in a round hole, although everyone's guilty of it. I myself, especially in my early part of my career, did that quite often. But the reality is the problems that develop from doing this down the road often aren't worth it, and they're just a pain, or you're just not the right fit. So after understanding what the client's needs are, be willing to walk away if it's the appropriate approach. One of the most powerful things you can do is honestly state when something is not a good fit. So if your product isn't the best solution for their needs, say no. The absolute honesty here is going to build massive trust and ensures that even for yourself, you only work with clients who you were truly meant to be good for your business. So I think when you can get to that point and choose who your clients are that you're going to bring on, it is, you've kind of reached the top because you're not taking on pain in the necks, and they're not going to be dissatisfied with you. So that wraps it up. And in actual final closing here, the next webinar it's done. This was one of the slides that I had obviously not updated, but we're here. So if there's nothing else following this, so please take the time, go back to our website, our YouTube channel, to catch up on all the episodes. The next Retireaholics is coming up this Thursday, August 6th at 4:30 Pacific with special guest Sherry Fitz. She is absolutely amazing. If you guys don't know who she is, tune in. You will not be disappointed. She's hosting her Sway conference right now, actually, in Colorado. So she is dynamite, and you will love her just as much as we do. That's it from the Expedition crew. We truly appreciate you all being here, taking the time out of your schedules again to be with us, and look forward to connecting here in the future. Appreciate you guys.